welcome to tonight's webinar on cosplaying. Today's webinar is brought to you by the South Australian Commissioner for Children and Young People and the Australian Esports League. My name is Domino and I'm your host for the evening. I'm joined by two very special guests tonight. Our first guest is Punzie. Welcome, Punzie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And our other guest here is Danielle this evening. Welcome, Danielle.
Hey, thank you for having me as well.
So just to give you a bit of background info on both of these two amazing cosplayers, Punzie is well known for her anime, superhero and performance cosplay with a global reputation in the Love Live anime fandom world. Our other guest, Whereisdanielle, is globally renowned for her Halo creations and has built a reputation with industry, working officially for Blizzard and showcasing her passion for popular video game characters. Now, to start us off this evening, I would like to ask both Punzie and Danielle how they got into cosplay. So, Punzie and Danielle, tell us, how did you start in cosplay?
Well, I started in cosplay. Growing up, I didn't actually know what cosplay was, but I was absolutely obsessed with Sailor Moon and Tokyo Mew Mew, or Mew Mew Power is how I knew it. I used to watch it on Cheese TV and Toasted TV back in the day. And then I was introduced to it by a friend, and I found Love Live, which is what I do all the time. And it was pretty much Love Live that kicked off my love for cosplay, and I've been doing it ever since. I've just met amazing people. I perform Love Live, and it's become my life pretty much.
Awesome. And Danielle, what about you? How'd you get into cosplay?
So I come from a really artistic family. My dad's a handyman and my mum used to be a graphic designer. So I kind of grew up always doing artsy stuff and making things. And one day I kind of just saw some people cosplaying on the internet and thought I would like to do that. And I started and never, ever, ever stopped.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks both for letting us know how you both got into it. Now, just for those watching at home, just so you are aware, we are going to have a Q&A section at the end of tonight's webinar as well. So if you have any questions, drop them into chat and we'll ask as many as we can at the end. If you did pre-register, we already have your questions that were provided, so thank you for those. For now, I'm going to hand over to Punzie and she's going to start us off this evening.
Oh, thank you so much, Domino. So hello, everybody. My name is Punzie, and thank you so much for joining the webinar tonight. So I've made a little slideshow to try and explain things easier, and because I'm a very visual person. So yeah, there's lots of photos, there are some dot points, but mostly I'll just be going into detail of just small little things when you're first getting into cosplay. So Cosplay 101, our overview. So our top topics. What should I cosplay? Should I make or buy my cosplay? Can I cosplay on a budget? Are there any other ways I can express myself in cosplay? And how do I become a part of the community? So the first slide that we're going to go into is, what should I cosplay? Anything you like. It doesn't matter if it's from a comic book, movie, video game, anime, an original character. You can cosplay anything you like. That's the wonderful thing about cosplay. It's not just one little thing. It covers absolutely anything, including your own character, something that you've made up. And cosplay isn't restricted to gender or to race. Cosplay is an all-inclusive community. So if you feel like you want to cosplay a different gender, if you want to cosplay a character that's a different gender, you could do that. It doesn't matter. No one's going to judge you, and that's another wonderful thing about cosplay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What should I cosplay? Absolutely anything you like. Should I make or buy my cosplay? It doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. Now, of course, you need to take into consideration your money restrictions and time restraints, all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, if you're worried about whether buying a cosplay doesn't make you a real cosplayer, that doesn't matter. That's something that I get asked all the time by younger cosplayers. They say to me, Punzie, I really want to be a cosplayer, or I want to get into the cosplay community, but I'm not a good sewer, I can't make a costume. So, I just don't feel like a real cosplayer, I don't feel legit. And that's just absolutely not true. It doesn't matter if you make it, you buy it, or you buy things and decorate them. It doesn't matter at all. Just because you don't make your costume, it doesn't make you any less of a cosplayer. So I've got 3 photos here. The first one is completely handmade by myself. Absolutely everything from the pattern that I used is completely handmade, and that's actually the first cosplay that I ever made. The one in the middle is half bought and half made. So the top that you see that I'm wearing is actually a top that I bought from Supre, and then I decorated it. So I had leftover lace, so I added lace to it to make it a bit more pretty, I guess. And then I got some gems from Spotlight, and I just hot glued them on. And then I have some tulle, and I've made the skirt, but then it's really puffy because I had a petticoat. I already owned that. So it doesn't really matter. You can reuse things, or you can buy things and add to it. Doesn't matter. It still looks as good as the completely handmade one. And then the last picture is bought, and then I just decorated it. So it's completely bought online, and I just added some glitter to the ends, and I decorated it with some sequins. But yeah, it doesn't matter whether you make or buy a cosplay at all. That is completely up to you. That's completely up to your time and your money constraints as well. But don't ever think for 1 second that because you don't make a costume that it doesn't make you as good as a cosplay, because that's not true at all. Now this one has the most words, but I promise it's not as scary as it looks. Can I cosplay on a budget? Absolutely, 150% you can cosplay on a budget. So for myself, and of course it differs from cosplayer to cosplayer and what they're cosplaying. On average, a cosplay can cost me between $100 to $150. However, as you could see, the photo on the right, I've put there how I cosplayed on a budget. So what I did, I could have gone and bought this. There is an official cosplay, but to get this on a budget, Blue Man's shirt, basic Blue Man shirt that you can get from, you could even just go to your local Salvation Army. You could get that. Go to your local Big W, or even ask your dad or someone you know if they have a shirt that you could borrow. And then I just have a basic white cap. You can write on that with a black Sharpie, yellow children's bag, a yellow whistle, gumboots, white shorts. There we go. That's a cosplay done. Super simple, super easy, and on a budget. But just because it's simple doesn't mean that you can't do anything that's extravagant. If you want to cosplay on a budget, it can be done. So first off, check your wardrobe for any pieces that you can use or repurpose. Maybe you have a shirt or some pants or a skirt or something like that that you don't really wear anymore. And maybe you have a long skirt and it might look good as a really good cape if you added pieces to it. Just make sure, if you need to ask your parents if you can repurpose it, or if you don't use it, then maybe you can repurpose that. You could repurpose that as well, because you're saving money. You can also get some great pieces for your cosplay at your local secondhand store, like I said before, from the Salvation Army or anything like that. You would be amazed at what you can find, especially if you're doing something a little bit more extravagant. You might be able to find some buttons, and they may not be the exact type of thing you need, but maybe you can just paint them or spray paint them or something, and they'll be perfect. So definitely go and check them out. Have a look online for secondhand cosplays, but always be a bit careful, because I've personally found that people do like to definitely overprice the secondhand cosplays, but you can get some absolutely amazing deals. So maybe look on Facebook, or ask your parents if they want to look on some Facebook groups for you, or even Facebook Marketplace. I found a lot of amazing deals on there. And not just for cosplays, like for a shirt or for a skirt or whatever, anything you can find. Like I said before, maybe a skirt you see that's wonderful. Maybe you can buy a skirt and it's really cheap, and then you just make it into a cape and you can save. That's a ton of money that you can save. Yes, if you need to buy something, for example, shoes, which is, I'm talking from personal experience. If you need to buy something, try to buy something that you know you will use many times. So for me, because I perform a lot, I use white shoes for a lot of my cosplays. It's just the cosplay that I do. They use white shoes a lot, all the time. Now, it may not be perfect, may not be completely canon and completely perfect to the costume that the character's wearing. However, no one's really going to look at like white shoes with like a diamond on it or something like that. So if you need to buy something, what I've done, I needed to buy white shoes. So I bought some white heels that I needed, and I've used them multiple times. They've lasted me at least 2 years now. So that is something that I did need to buy for a cosplay, but I use them constantly. So that is something that I've saved money on. And if you have to buy something, your best bet is AliExpress. Absolute best bet. And no one told me this when I was first, starting out in cosplay. I used to go on eBay and all that kind of stuff. AliExpress is your best bet. But also keep in mind, because of coronavirus, COVID-19, shipping may take a long time. However, you're definitely going to find the best things on AliExpress. Now, in the other photo I've posted, there's 2 of them with the group. That's my dance group. Now, we ordered separately a costume for all of us, and we spent hundreds of dollars on this, as this was our big debut performance. However, we ordered this just as the coronavirus pandemic happened, and our costumes didn't arrive. They were still stuck overseas, and we had less than 2 weeks to go. Less than 2 weeks. And we were like, what are we going to do? So we made these costumes. So they're all a little bit different, but all the same. So they have a white top, a white bottom, white shoes, and some rainbow trim, and a flower in the girl's color, because each girl has a different color. And these were done super last minute, which meant that they would be way more expensive than if you had 6 months, to go. However, on an average, they were about $40 per person for the entire, not including the wig, but top to bottom costume. Mine was $30, I think, $25, $30. Of course, it depends. Some of the girls wanted to customize there a bit more or a little bit less, but you can definitely cosplay on a budget. And this was last minute. So if we did this from the beginning, I'm sure we could have cut it down even cheaper. So because we had a group, we just bulk buyed the rainbow fabric. One of us bought it, and then we split it between all 9 of us, and it was super cheap. So you can definitely 100% cosplay on a budget. In the next slide, are there any other ways I can express myself in cosplay? Absolutely. It's not just about being in the costume. There's skits, photo shoots, you can enter a competition, perform a dance, or even film a dance cover. Now, I've just got a video here of my wonderful dance group that we recorded a video of, which Steph's going to play for us in a moment. Yes, so as you can see, cosplay is not just about dressing up in a costume. There's so many other wonderful things you can do. And not only can you expand your skills in things such as sewing, but that video that you just watched, I completely edited. Now, it may not be 100% perfect, definitely not something that you would like see at the movies or anything, but I had never done anything like that before. And so I picked up the skills to be able to edit it, and I had to completely change how the sky looked, because it was so overcast and sad, and it just didn't look very happy like the song was. So that's a wonderful other skill that I've picked up, all thanks to cosplay. So yeah, definitely don't worry about it. It's not just about cosplay. You want to dance, you want to be able to express yourself more, 100%. There are many, many other ways that you can do that. In the next slide, how do I become a part of the community? Now, you may be wondering, I love cosplay, but I'm nervous and I'm a bit anxious. I'm not sure how to talk to people. That's okay. There's so many ways to meet people, and not just for conventions. Like maybe you're worried because you couldn't get to a convention or you haven't been able to go to any of the conventions in Australia or something's happened or whatever. Facebook groups, you can meet plenty of people online in Facebook groups. There's plenty of them for specific conventions in Australia, and also cosplay groups like Cosplay Australia All Inclusive. There are many groups, and they're all wonderfully supportive. There are cosplay meetups which you can go to, mostly held at conventions, but also people do hold cosplay meetups outside of conventions. There are some that happen in Sydney. Well, they haven't happened in a while because of all the restrictions, but I'm sure when everything's back and calm, they'll happen again. And people just hold a picnic and it's open to the public, and a lot of families come and they bring their children, and you're able to meet like-minded people. And then there's conventions, of course, and then special events such as movie premieres or special screenings. So if you you love Spider-Man, right? You can go to the special premiere of to go see Spider-Man, and you can go into the Spider-Verse. Lots of people cosplay to the premiere or the whatever it is, the first screening of it. People cosplay to those things. This photo that I have there, this is for a special screening of Love Live. They have the voice actors, they dance and they sing, and we all gathered together and got a photo. And you can't actually see how big the crowd is, but there were cosplayers there, and just able to be around people who love the things that you love is just a wonderful, amazing feeling. And it's not just conventions, so there's plenty other ways to meet new people and make new friends. The very last slide. Cosplay is about fun. Remember, cosplay is an all-inclusive community. Doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are. We're all geeks. We're all outcasts in some way. We're all nerds. We're here to welcome you and love you with open arms. No judgment, nothing. If someone does say something nasty, don't listen to them. We're all here to have fun. These photos that you see of me with all these wonderful people, that's my dance group. They were once strangers that I met online because we wanted to come together to all dance, and now I consider them my real family, and they're a massive support unit to me, and I don't know where I would be without them. So if cosplay is something you're thinking about or something that you love and you really want to get into, don't let anyone hold you back. I really, I'm on your side, and I'm right there behind you. Just take the first step, and I support you all the way. Don't look back. You've got this. You can do it no matter what. Remember, Punzie's there, and I got your back. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Danielle now.
Thank you. I think you pretty much covered the whole how do I get into cosplay and the community side of things really well. I agree to everything that you've said. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about foam now. This on my screen here is some of the costumes that I've made. All of these are made from foam. The one on the right is actually my first ever costume, and that's my first ever photo in cosplay. Yeah, and the other ones I've sort of done from there. So my next slide, we're going to talk through some basic materials. You might be wondering, like, how do I make armor? How would I go about doing that? Well, there's a bunch of different materials that you can make armor with. It's not all that scary, I promise you. You have your really simple stuffs like EVA foam, which you can buy pretty much anywhere, and thermoplastics like Warbler and Lumiflex, I think, is another brand. Warbler's the big one, you'll know of it. There are harder materials such as 3D printing and fiberglass, which is actually on my next slide. Here's a quick example of some 3D printing and fiberglass. These are more expensive and a little bit harder to get into, so that's something you want to build up to and probably not start there. So on my next slide, I'll tell you why I think you should start with some EVA foam. The biggest plus about EVA foam is that it is so cheap. I started cosplaying when I was still in school. I was working out of this bedroom in this very chair that I'm sitting in right now in this tiny room. My budget was so minimal. I had a part-time job. That was it. So I was buying camping floor mats from Kmart at $10 a pack of 4 squares. I only needed 2 packs to do a full suit of armor, so there's $20 just on the foam alone, and then some hot glue, and I was all set. So foam is great because it's cheap. It's readily available. You can get it everywhere. It's super forgiving to work with, super good for beginners because you can just do whatever to it and it will survive. It's so easy to use, and it's also super, super, super lightweight to wear, not like wearing 3D printed plastic or fiberglass, or even Warbler gets a little bit heavy. So we'll just move on to my next slide. This is sort of where can I get foam? There are so many places to get foam these days. You have like your physical stores such as Bunnings and Kmart and Clark Rubber, and then you've got online stores that sell the same stock that can deliver it to your house, like Amazon, eBay, or even Kmart online, that sort of deal. Or you can buy from specialty cosplay stores, which are becoming more and more common these days. So in Australia, we have Lumen's Workshop in Melbourne, we have Hero Studio up on the Gold Coast, Brisbane area, and then we have international ones like TNT Cosplay Supply and Polyprops. And I'm sure if you've been watching any YouTube videos or anything, you've definitely heard those names around. So now that you know where to get it, let's talk a little bit about some tools that you're going to need to work with EVA foam. Now, I cannot stress enough that you need to be very careful when working with foam because you are going to need a very sharp knife to cut it. So please always, always, always be careful with your knives. Don't cut towards yourself. Be careful where you put your hands, all that stuff. So you're going to need a sharp blade, a cutting mat. You need to protect the surfaces that you're cutting on, otherwise your parents will kill you. I definitely got in trouble a lot for that when I first started. Glues, to glue your foam together, you can use hot glue or contact cement. Hot glue, you need to be careful not to burn yourself and not to set anything on fire. It's really, really hot. And contact cement has fumes, so you need to be careful not to inhale that and to do that outside. You can also use heat guns to bend the foam, because when you heat foam, it will become more flexible. So when you set it into a curve and it cools down, it will stay in that curved shape. So that's really cool for doing like helmets or like rounded shoulder pieces and stuff like that. And foam is sandable. A lot of people overlook this, but you can use a rotary tool like a Dremel or something, or hand sand it with some sandpaper and put all sorts of different textures or smooth out seams and all that sort of stuff. So I mentioned safety a little bit. I cannot stress enough how you need to be safe when you're cosplaying. So masks, respirators if you're working with contact cement or fumes or anything. I think I have a slide for this. Yes, I do. There you go. There's some photos just there of some stuff that you may need. And by may, I mean most likely, most definitely will need to get, you're going to want a respirator so that you don't inhale any dust if you're sanding foam, or any fumes from your glue or any fumes from your paint. You need to do that sort of fumey stuff outside so that you keep your lungs safe. If you're using a rotary tool, you need to wear goggles. You only have one set of eyes. And if you're working with hot foam and trying to form hot foam with a heat gun, please think about using gloves. The last thing you want to do is burn yourself. It really takes the fun out of it. We've covered materials and we've covered safety. So you're thinking, well, how do I make something? Well, you're going to need a pattern or a template. These are readily available online. There's people that put them out for free, or you can make your own. So I've made my own before. On the screen right here is just a really rough drawing that I drew of my Skyrim shin that I needed to make. I just drew it out, cut it out, and then I used that as my template to make something. So the bonus about doing that is you can completely customize it however you want. It's really simple, and you can make it the right size. There also are other ways to do things that are a little more advanced and also not free, like Peppercura Designer, which is where you can import a 3D model and then cut it up in the software, and it will turn it into 2D templates. So you can see on the left there, that's the 3D model, and on the right, that's it turned into like 2D templates, so you can reassemble it into the physical shape. Peppercura is, I think, $40, so it's not cheap, but once you have the license, it's yours forever, and you can get the files for free online. There's a little demonstration of I always do a paper tester. So I'll print out my templates, cut it, test out the size, and then go to foam from there. So I just lay everything on the foam, trace around it with pen, and get cutting out from there. I have a little sample here. You can go to that next slide. A little sample here of foam. This is what I meant by it's really flexible. You can do whatever the hell you want to it, and you can stick and glue it however you want. There's an example just there of how you can Dremel into it. Because it is spongy, it's really forgiving if you're trying to push dents into it or whatever. That took me forever to do. I don't recommend trying to do that by hand. But you can do like scratches, dents, any kind of like hammered steel effect like that. I've got some more photos that just sort of demonstrate some stuff that you can do. There you go. There's an example of how you can round things. If you heat that up, it stays rounded. I do actually have that piece here with me right now. You can see it's remained rounded all this time later. So that's super good. You can texture in that. On the very far right there is my foam shield that I just dremeled wood grain into so that it looked more realistic. You can see in the middle there's a couple of examples of how you can layer foam to give you sort of different effects. So you can just glue things on top, or you can glue things on angles, and it's all about creating depth and faking it. Because that's pretty much what cosplay is faking it. So I just have a bunch of like photo examples of foam pieces and then the finished piece, and how different they look. Another thing I would stress you not to worry about too much is if it doesn't look amazing when it's just raw foam and not painted, don't panic. Paint solves everything. EVA foam is very absorbent, so when you go to paint it, make sure you need to seal it. You can seal the top of it with a heat gun, or you can spray on something like a plasti dip or a Rust-Oleum peel coat or a latex coat, or you can paint it with wood glue. And that just stops the paint from soaking in and ruining your paint job. On the left in that photo there is actually the plasti dipped version. So that's sealed and ready for painting. And I paint all of my stuff with cheap sample plots of house paints because they're super cheap. Cosplay on a budget, big time. So everything here in all my photos is just cheap foam. It's painted with house paints, nice and cheap. I do really big scale stuff too, so foam is great because it's lightweight. Like that's huge. I'm only like 5'6", like 160 centimeters, somewhere around there. That's a huge costume, but that wasn't expensive at all because foam is so cheap. It wasn't heavy because foam is so light, and it was really easy to put together because hot glue and contact cement. And if I made a mistake, I could just sand it down, put some paint over it, and pretend it never happened. Yeah, so that's pretty much all of my slides. So I definitely can speak more on things in questions at the end. So definitely let me know.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so it really depends on the prop that you're trying to make, and also the look that you're going
Sorry, Danielle,
for.
to interrupt you. Sorry, everyone. My mic was muted there for a second, so everyone at home didn't actually hear that question. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to repeat myself. Apologies, everybody at home. So the question that was asked, our first question of the evening, is what are the best materials to make weapons out of? I'm especially interested in staffs as I will be cosplaying as Sailor Pluto at the next convention I go to. I'm most interested in hearing about materials used for armor and weapons.
Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, it really it depends exactly what you're building and exactly what you want it to look like as the end product. For doing a staff, I highly recommend getting there's a little bug that keeps flying around, really wants to be a part of this presentation. Really recommend getting like PVC pipe or something solid as an inside so that it doesn't flop around. As you saw, foam is really bendy, and when you get something really long, it is gonna droop. So you are going to want to put something solid inside it to hold it out, and you can just get craft foam or 2mm foam and wrap that around the staff, or you can use that as well as foam clay. This is really cool stuff. It's like it's exactly as it's named. It's clay that air dries the same texture as foam. So you could do foam around the body of the PVC pipe, and then if you wanted to do like twisted wood at the top or any funny shapes, like wanted to sculpt something, you could make that out of clay, or you could carve it out of foam. You could also 3D print stuff, and that it's really up to you, your budget, and what you want the finish to be. I recommend trying everything with foam first because foam's amazing. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Danielle. So our second question has asked how to take your cosplay costumes look to that next level, i.e. more professional. So there's two sort of extra parts that have been asked for it as well, is sort of regarding EVA foam, how do you make your work look really clean? And then another part is what is the best airbrush machine for painting and where to purchase from as well as paint. So bit of a full-on question there. How do we make our cosplays look a bit more professional? How do we make our EVA foam work look really clean? And is there some airbrush machines for paintings and things that you might recommend, or purchasing paints?
I think
Punzie, you can go first.
Yeah, I'll just cover the sewing thing. It's super simple. Well, yeah. For sewing, definitely you if you have an overlocker, overlock it and hem your seams and press your seams. Please hem your seams. That makes, I promise it makes the biggest difference in if you want it to look like super duper more professional. It's just something very small, but it makes the biggest difference. Yeah.
Yeah, the devil's in the details and just the little things that you can do to just polish it off. So with foam for like seams and stuff, if you get like a gap filler or you sand it and just cover the seams a little bit more, it looks smoother and more professional. If you there's so many things you can do. A big thing that a lot of people overlook is a clear coat, like a gloss clear coat on top. Really makes things shine and look solid. If you're painting something, lots of different layers of paint, different colors. If you just use black as a weathering, it's just going to look very flat and 2D. So shadows and highlights, and use at least 3 colors of dirt if you're going to make something dirty. I could go on for ages. There's so many.
That's okay. That's really good advice. Oh, Punzie's camera has
I've disappeared. Sorry,
I'm dancing as well.
You're dancing.
I'm wearing the
I'm just so excited.
I was more concerned that Punzie completely dropped out, but it's okay. We've still got her. You haven't entirely lost her. We still
Hello? What is that? I'm so sorry.
I'm not sure what's going on there. It could be, internet. That could be an issue that potentially is happening this evening, but that's all right. We will soldier on. The last part of that question was about airbrushing for painting or where to purchase paint.
Yes.
Have you ever used any airbrushing tools, Danielle, or do you recommend any, or where do you buy all your paints from? You mentioned house paints, so I guess where do you pick all those up from?
Yes. So the first 3 costumes that I did, I was just brushing it on with a paintbrush. That took ages. Like I said, I just buy acrylic in hobby stores. If you need bulk amounts of paint, get sample pots from Bunnings. You can color match any color under the sun and just get a little sample pot for like $6. I recently, and I say recently, it's been about 3 years, have started airbrushing everything because it just is so much smoother and there's no brush lines. Aldi literally last week just sold an amazing $80 air compressor and airbrush set. I bought one myself. I now own 2. You can buy them online. Again, Amazon, eBay, that sort of stuff. Just a cheap starter set. Anything that does like nail art is probably a pretty good place to start. Airbrush paints also you can buy online, but you can run house paints through an airbrush. You just will need to water it down. Any acrylics that you try and put through an airbrush, do at least 50% water.
Okay, good to know. Now, another question we've been asked this evening is about social media accounts as a cosplayer. So, how to manage a cosplay social media account? How much should you be posting? What do you post between cons and events?
Ooh, I think, gosh, I think that depends on the person really, because I
Yeah.
know some people that are really into social media, some people aren't. My favorite social media for my cosplay is Instagram, and it's been kind of hard and sucky at the moment, I guess, because of the pandemic that's going on. But I usually will build up like if coming up to a convention, like do little like hints of what I'm going to cosplay, or like I'll do like works in progress. And then at the convention, I'll usually get a bunch of photographs done, do a couple of shoots, and then I try to space them out in between. But also because I do have my dance group, because I founded my dance group, so I guess I'm like, I organize all of the pretty much everything that goes on. I organize. So I've kept very busy with that as well. So it's not just myself. I'm very lucky to also have my dance group. So if I run out of content, I'll usually have content from my dance group that I haven't actually shared, and vice versa, etc. Um, but yeah, it really just depends on the person, because some people can just like post one thing and they get like a million followers, and and it depends if you're there. Like, why are you there? Are you there to connect with people? Are you there to get a following? Are you there to just share with the world what you're making? It just depends on the person.
Yeah. Yeah, all of that's very true. I am the wrong person to ask about managing a social media account effectively, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't post regularly. I never have content when I should have content. And it somehow that works for me. I'm not sure. Just whatever you are proud of and you want to present to the world, post that. Don't spam lots
Mm.
of pictures in one day. The algorithm will suppress
Oh
it.
yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Every second day, every third day, like twice a week. If you forget to post for 2 weeks, they'll still be there when you come back. I'm really bad. I'm so bad at social media.
All good. Thanks for those insights. So, question about EVA foam. How, as a beginner, is or what is the best way to cut and sculpt foam as a beginner? Is there any
So
tips and tricks?
yeah, the one thing I see every beginner do that you definitely shouldn't do is they saw at things. You know, when you're cutting wood with a saw and you just go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, don't do that. You want a nice sharp blade, and you want to cut in one big smooth dragging motion, slow and steady, very careful, and you'll end up with a really nice smooth edge. For sculpting, you can hack at things because you're just trying to remove as much as possible before you go in and sand. Uh, Patience, don't rush it. Just take it nice and slow. Be aware that what you're doing is going to leave a mark on the foam that is going to be fairly permanent. And some things can't be covered up with weathering. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question in relation to foam. What are different types of foam good for? So there's EVA, there's insulation, there's high density. What would you use different foams for different applications, I guess?
Right. So, I haven't worked with the insulation foam. I've seen a lot of people use that for props. I can't imagine it working for armor because of the type of foam it is. It seems to snap. It's very rigid. EVA foam comes in different densities, which is basically just how rigid it is and how likely it is to curve and bend and stuff. So if you're trying to do something rounded, like the top of this helmet, kind of get it in frame, you probably want a lower density foam so that you can get a nice dome. If you're trying to do a flat shield, you're probably going to want something more high density and rigid so that it doesn't bend everywhere. You'll kind of, as you work with foam, get the feel of how it reacts to different like weights and different sizes and all that sort of stuff. So basic rule of thumb, if it's nice and flat, nice and simple, use a high density. If it needs to be curvy, or if it's small, you can get away with a lower density, more flexible foam.
Awesome. Okay, Grim Reap 123 has asked, where is the best place to get Pepakura files and blueprints?
I honestly just use the Google image function. So I go into Google Images and type what I want with the word Pepakura on the end. And then I scroll through the hundreds and hundreds of photos of screenshots of what the Pepakura file looks like, and then find it from there. So you can do that. There's dedicated Facebook groups. So there's the Pepakura Depository, the Pepakura Library. There's websites like the 405th or the RPF that have built-in databases where you can find files. You can ask other cosplayers. That's definitely a big one. If someone you've seen has made something, you can always say, hey, did you make that with Pepakura? And can you share your files with me? Or would you share your files with me? A lot of the time they'll say yes. I gave away a bunch of my, well, not gave away, but I shared a bunch of my files the other day with a bunch of people who asked, because cosplay is about community, and we like to share and foster more growth in the community. So, yeah.
Awesome. Grim Reaper 123 has also asked, have you got any cool or unexpected tip you wish you had known when you started this journey? So anything you wish you'd known before you started cosplaying?
Everything.
You've learned so much.
The whole content of this talk, I came into it with no idea. So I wish I had this webinar and someone to tell me that it's not that bad and where I can buy things. So
Yeah, me too. Probably just that it's okay to make mistakes as well. I'm very much a perfectionist, and so I feel like I wish I could just go back and be like, hey, Punzie, little Punzie, it's okay. Not everything has to be perfect. Like, this is your first cosplay. Don't stress about it. Like, seriously, you're there to have fun. But yeah, like Danielle, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But yeah.
And look where you both are now, doing amazing cosplays and helping other new cosplayers in webinars.
Yeah.
All right. Miss O'Snitzel has asked, where is the best place to get wigs from?
Best place, in my opinion, I think it definitely depends what you're looking for. I buy the majority of my wigs from eBay, but that's just because they come quicker if they're from an Australian seller. But you can also get some on AliExpress. The thing I prefer about AliExpress, and I do love about AliExpress, is you can look at the reviews and you can actually see photos that people have left of their reviews. But with eBay, like, you have to scroll through and then see everything. So unless it's like a seller that has like a 99.9% rating on eBay, or you've bought from them before and you know they're good, or you know someone, maybe I think start out definitely on AliExpress, because you can always go through and see the reviews and see the pictures. And in my experience, the wigs generally look more like the pictures on AliExpress. So it just depends.
Awesome. Danielle, any extra you'd like to add in relation to wigs there?
Just that I've bought from Arda Wigs. They have a Australia stockist now, and also Wig is Fashion, another online wig store. They are more expensive than buying on AliExpress, but there are heaps of options out there. And so far, apart from a couple of duds on eBay, I'm yet to have a bad experience.
Awesome. All right. We have, this might actually be our last question. So if anybody else in the stream does have another question you'd like to ask, feel free to drop it in there now, because we're actually at our last one for the evening that we've got recorded so far. Grim Reaper 123 has asked, if you have a cosplay tool you could not live without, what would it be?
Hot glue gun.
Can I say all of them?
Oh.
What was your answer? Sorry, Danielle? All of them?
All of them. All of them.
All of the items.
Like, usually you would think a hot glue gun is like just for like, you know, armor and stuff. I don't build armor or anything like that, but there have been times I've been hot gluing like minutes before I'm on stage. I'm hot gluing diamantes onto my costume. It's not, you know, it's kind of not the best look, but it does the job.
Gets you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's messy and you can't. Oh gosh, but it does the job.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that was our last question, which it does seem to be. So, thank you so much to Danielle and Punzie for your insights and
Thank you.
knowledge that you've shared this evening. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us.
And if you are there in the stream and you'd like to see more about what Punzie and Where is Danielle do, then check out their Instagrams. You can see their links just there. We've got punzie.t and Where is Danielle, and you can see all the amazing creations they are doing. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time this evening. Okay, and everybody in the webinar, thank you so much to everyone who came tonight to see this webinar on cosplay. Thank you to the South Australian Commissioner for Children and Young People and the Australian Esports League, for without either of them tonight would have not happened. We do have a form as well this evening for feedback. We'd love to get your thoughts on this evening. So if you have a spare couple of minutes, I would love you to click on that link that's dropped into the chat and give us some feedback for this evening. I hope you've all found tonight beneficial and perhaps learned something new in the world of cosplay. Thank you all and good night.